Any of these changes in time are achieved through interpolation. In other words, After Effects interpolating from the value of one keyframe to the value of the next keyframe. I would like to talk a little bit about different types of interpolation. Let's go ahead and delete all of these keyframes by clicking on the stopwatch, right-click the layer, transform, reset to just transform everything. Let's move this anchor point to the middle of the circle. There you go. Perfect. And now let's keyframe this again so it goes left to right. There are two types of interpolation. There is spatial interpolation, which refers to changes in space. In other words, it's moving from left to right. There's also temporal interpolation, which refers to changes in time. In other words, it's moving in 2 seconds or in 3 seconds or whatever. Every single keyframeable property in After Effects has or contains temporal interpolation. After all, that's how we make our changes, is changes in time. But not all of the properties contain spatial interpolation. Spatial interpolation refers to only changes in the x and y parameters. That is in positions x, which refers to left to right, and y, which refers to up and down. Right now, if you see the path here, you will see that it's a straight line. That is known as linear interpolation. So, in spatial interpolation, we can have linear interpolation, or, let me go ahead and switch my tool here. You can also have Bezier interpolation by moving these handles. Sometimes they're tricky to grab. There you go. Now you can see that we have only 2 keyframes, but yet our clip is moving on an arch motion. Let's move the CTI to in between these 2 keyframes, and let's add one more keyframe in here by clicking on the Add or Remove Keyframe icon here at the Keyframe Navigator. There you go. You can now move the CTI a little bit, and what we are left with is a keyframe that has 2 handles. One handle controls the incoming curve, the other handle controls the outgoing curve. These 2 handles are working right now on what is known as the seesaw effect, in which if one goes up, the other one goes down, and vice versa. Sometimes we don't want this type of interpolation. This is known as continuous Bezier. Sometimes we want to have one curve be independent from the other curve. You can achieve that by using the Convert Vertex Point tool, which is located right here together with the Pen tool. Click and hold on the Pen tool, and here is the Convert Vertex tool. Go ahead and click on the actual handle and drag it up or down, and there you go. Let's go back to the Selection tool, and now each and every handle is independent from the other. This is known as regular Bezier interpolation. Let's go ahead and delete all of these keyframes. Click on the stopwatch, and let's start a new interpolation. Let's keyframe position here, move in time. All you have to do now is just click and drag the image, move in time, click and drag it again, move in time. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Let's just be careful about where we click, and that is more for me than for you. Drag it again. And as you notice in here, the path already has some curves. If I click on this keyframe, for example, you will see that there are little dots here referencing to the handles, but there is no handle. This is known as auto Bezier because you are not really in control of the curve. After Effects is. After Effects will create the curve depending on where you place this keyframe. All right, let's go ahead and delete these keyframes. Let's go left to right again. Let's talk about temporal interpolation. Temporal interpolation, like I mentioned before, is changes in time. In other words, is going from left to right in exactly 2 seconds and 21 frames. I want you to notice the path. The path is made out of little dots. The faster the speed, let me just go ahead and move these 2 keyframes closer together, the farther apart these dots will be. The slower the speed, the closer together the dots will be. And that is because those dots represent moments in time. Now, right now, all of the dots are equally separated on the screen. Let me zoom in so you can see it, which means that the speed of this graphic is even from beginning to end. Things in nature don't really move like that. Things usually have a gradual acceleration and a gradual deceleration. In After Effects, you can do that very, very easily. Let's select both of these keyframes, and you can do that by clicking on the word Position. If you click on the word of any keyframe property, that will select all of the keyframes assigned to that property. All you have to do now is press the F9 key. The F9 key will give a gradual acceleration and a gradual deceleration, also known as ease out and ease in, or in After Effects, easy ease. Notice that the shape of the keyframe changed to that of a little hourglass, meaning that we are now changing the time interpolation. Let's go ahead and click on the graph editor, which is this icon right here. What we see on the screen now is a speed curve measured in pixels per second. Notice that there is a gradual acceleration. The higher the curve, the faster the speed, and a gradual deceleration. The keyframes are represented by these little white dots here. You can click on one of them, and you can even adjust these handles. Notice as you adjust the handles that the dots that make up the path are changing dynamically. Let's change the other handle as well. And let me zoom out here in the comp panel. And let's RAM preview this. That's 0 on your numeric keypad. This is a very, very different interpolation that we had before. It says something different. It communicates a different idea. It is important to realize that we should play around with the timing of our keyframes. Things in nature move like that, so it looks more natural to the viewer. Just like with spatial interpolation, we have different types of interpolation when it comes to temporal. When it's linear, it's just regular speed. It starts at one speed, keeps on going, and it ends at the same speed. When we play around with the speed, it's called Bezier. When there is a relationship between the incoming speed of a keyframe and the outgoing one, it's called continuous Bezier. When there is no relationship, it's just known as Bezier. We also have hold keyframes. I'm going to get out of the graph editor view. Just clicking here. There you go. Let's go ahead and select both of these keyframes by clicking on the word Position. Go ahead and right-click just one of them and select Keyframe Interpolation. A new panel opens, and here under Temporal Interpolation, we can change this property. Linear Bezier, Continuous, Auto, and Hold. Hold is when there is no interpolation. Let's go ahead and change that and click OK. If we RAM preview this, the clip will be left, and then we'll just move right. There will be no interpolation. That's what the hold keyframe is all about. There is one more type of keyframe that I'd like to talk about. Let's go ahead and delete these keyframes. There you go. Make this a little bit larger. Move your CTI all the way to the left, to the beginning of the composition. And let's just keyframe position. Move in time with the CTI. Move your clip a little bit. Move in time again. Move your clip again. Do 2 or 3 keyframes like that. Now let's just go ahead and RAM preview this. 0 on the numeric keypad. And there you go. What you see here is that the interpolation in between the keyframes has different speeds depending on the time position of the keyframes. So we can click on the word Position and we can go to the graph editor. And notice that between keyframe 1 and keyframe 2 is going at a slower speed than between keyframe 2 and 3, etc., etc. If we would like for all of these keyframes to have an even speed through them, all we need to do is select all of the keyframes, exit the graph editor view, right-click one of them, keyframe interpolation, and where it says roving, choose Rove Across Time. Click OK. What happens now is that the shape of the keyframes changes to that of a little circle, and you are no longer in control of when in time the keyframe is. And After Effects will change the time position of the keyframe to keep the speed constant through them. Let's go ahead and see how that works. If I drag this keyframe here, notice the yellow keyframe, that is the selected one, it's moving back and forth in time. If we go back to the graph editor, let's go ahead and click on the word position and go back to the graph editor, the speed will be even throughout all of the keyframes. So much so that if I select all of them, again click on the word position and press F9 for easy ease, the gradual acceleration and deceleration will actually go through keyframes so that it's going to start accelerating at the beginning of the animation and decelerating at the end of the entire animation. This is most convenient.